themselves an ambassador, come get one.
Thank you. Okay, we'll hear from Whitley, then Linda, and then Dr. Hurtak.
A few minutes ago, the question was posed, what is to be done? And I wanted to just tell you what I do. And it's quite simple. I started quite a while ago. I started in 1970. And it's a meditation. It's a very simple meditation, but it's powerful. I've been doing it, I guess, pretty much every day since then. And recently it's become much more intense for reasons I'll explain in a moment. The meditation is to simply take your attention out of your mind and place it on your body. To sense, to let your attention concentrate on the sensation of your body. And you can
Should
either
we do it now?
Sure, you can do it as I speak.
Okay.
And there's a lot more to it, but just the basic thing of doing that every day for 15 or 20 minutes makes a world of difference in your life in every way. Now I want to fast forward from 1970 to a few months ago, when this was in October after Annie had passed away, and I mentioned it, I believe, earlier today, but I want to mention it again because many of you were not here then. I was at a conference, a William Henry conference in Nashville, and a lady came up to me, rather perplexed and looking a little bit embarrassed, and said, "Mr. Strieber, something very strange just happened to me." I didn't know the lady. She knew, she'd listened to our show, though. She knew of me and Ann. And she said, "I don't know quite what to say." Then she asked me an odd question. She said, "Do you have some sort of special chair, a rocking chair?" And I said, "Well, what is it?" She said, "Well, Ann said something to me in my ear." And she said it was her voice. It was just like on the radio. It was exactly her voice. And I said, "Well, what did she say?" She said, "Tell Whitley that I can see him when he's in the chair." And of course, this is the chair I meditate in. I knew immediately what was meant. And therefore, I also learned something, that this simple meditation actually enables us to cross the bridge between the living and the dead. And it is probably why the visitors came into my life in the first place. And it is so simple, and you can do it for 10 or 15 minutes every day. And what will happen is you will go to your body, you'll take your attention to your body, and in a few seconds, your mind will come back and say, "Well, wait a minute, we got this and that, thing. And then you'll remember, and you go back to your body. The work is that energy comes from that process of remembering and returning to your body again and again and again. And every time you do it, there's energy for you, and it is very powerful. Now, after I heard the lady and understood why I should meditate, the visitors moved in very quickly. And I suddenly, one night, a few nights later, I'd been meditating, usually meditated for about an hour at 11 o'clock, set before 30 minutes. Suddenly, at 2 o'clock in the morning, it felt like somebody had jabbed a hot needle under one of my toenails. And I woke up pretty quickly. And I thought, what is that about? And I went back to sleep. I always do this, no matter how, I'm always the last man to get it. So I went back to sleep thinking it must have been some kind of nerve, some kind of twitch. It happened the next night again. It was even worse. And I thought, wait a minute, somebody's doing this. There's somebody in here doing this. Why? Then I remembered something I had learned a long time ago, that meditation in the wee hours of the morning is very powerful. So I thought, it's them. They're working. They're trying to help me and Ann get into contact with each other better. So I got up and I went out and I meditated for about half an hour. Now I meditate at 11, at 3, and usually at about 6:30 or 7 as well. And what is happening is I am literally opening to a new level of experience and understanding of life, and it has been very powerful. My relationship with my wife has continued on. We now think, instead of until death do us part, it is as we abide. And I think the building of this bridge between us in the physical level and those of us who are not in the physical level, and making this species one whole, is a great deal of what all of these contact experiences are about. It certainly is a great deal of what mine have been about. And this little meditation is a place to start.
Thank you, Whitley. Well, we'll get to Linda, but I'm just looking at the sky turning pink out there, and this is what they call the magic hour, and it's just a beautiful place to be in the desert here with all of us kind of merging consciousnesses. We're becoming this greater being we've always wanted to be, all of us together. So, Linda, you've worked hard in a man's world to express yourself, to stand out, because you are intelligent and you are sensitive. Do you want to talk about then how are you bringing it forward? How are you moving forward with your life and your what you see for the future here of merging spirituality?
I was given a gift when I was 21 years old of a different consciousness. And I wrote about it in my third book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2. And it was an experience in the mountains in Idaho where I was with my brother and a cousin, and we were up doing camping and fishing, and I was doing a lot of hiking. And I had gone up a particular mountain every day, and I just liked that experience of climbing that mountain. And on this particular day, we were there for about 3 weeks. So I had been doing this quite a bit. And I had gotten to the top of the mountain when the mysterious turn of my head by something made me look at these orange, glowing, glittering beams that were coming down through some trees that were there. And I remember thinking, I have never seen light so beautiful, and I wanted to touch it. I wanted to be in it. And I started moving toward that light, and it was like when in a film it slows down to 96 frames a second. And all of my motion, I was very aware that everything had slowed way, way down. And I remember getting closer and closer to those orange beams. And I don't have a clear memory until, like a jump cut, I'm down near the bottom of the mountain. I don't remember getting down to the bottom of the mountain. And as I stepped onto a path, sort of in bewilderment, I wasn't afraid, I was bewildered about what was happening. And then I saw that one of the June summer flowers was pulsing with orchid light. It had sparks that were coming off, and the color was a beautiful, beautiful orchid, and the flower was pulsing to some rhythm. And it startled me, and I think I wanted the world to go back to, quote, normal. So I started running down that path to make everything go normal. And I stopped, and every flower, as far as I could see, was pulsing that orchid light. And I looked back on the mountain I'd come down. The sun had just gone down behind it because this was in the big mountain area of Idaho. And so the mountain was backlighted, dark shadow, even though there was blue sky. And you could see the rivulets like Van Gogh painted in one of his last paintings. Like an energy was in that mountain. And then I saw that little stars were beginning to shine in a part of the sky, and they were pulsing just like the flowers. And then I felt a physical impression on my arms. They'd been down at my side. I was watching in wonderment, and it had a feeling of jello, when you would touch jello, only the jello was lifting up my arms. And I found myself bringing my hands together in front of me. I didn't do it. The pressure of this jello against my skin did. And I heard a thought voice that's been with me since I was 2 or 3 years old, a voice that has kept me alive in terrible dangers. But I'm 21 years old during this experience. And the thought voice, with me looking at my hands being brought up in front of me, was, you are one with the light is one with you, and you're in the hands of God forever. And then it was like a rheostat. Something let go of my hands, and all of the flowers and everything around me started rheostating back. And I looked out over that field that had stopped pulsating, and I have never been the same since, because it was a gift to show me that underneath all the surface of this matter world and all matter worlds is pulsing light. And that is my rock, even when I have gone out to gather tissue from a mutilated animal.
Thank you, Linda. Dr. Hurtak, I mean, that's the kind of experience we all want. And Dr. Hurtak, you've written books, dozens of books about attaining that state. Can we attain it now? Can we have that experience? Can you help
We've
guide
been sharing
us?
some very touching moments together, and it's really the awakening of the higher self or the overself, the realization of what the psalmist writes in the Old Testament about he maketh the angel spirits, his ministers, administrating fire, the coming together of the human hierarchy and the angelic hierarchy. Or what the Christ figure in the New Testament speaks about, creating this light on the mountaintop. And the realization that we are the light, and now has come the moment to really orchestrate this light through the vibrations of sound, higher creativity, altered states of awareness, but ultimately the holistic pattern of unity has to be there as the central orchestration. And as we heard, it's so precious to realize the importance of our incarnation at this time in history, to be wayshowers of light, to be cosmic catalysts of light, to be emissaries of light, and to realize that this is a real drama unfolding, lest we be captured by negative phenomena, what I call a culture of death and violence we see on the national media. So let us give ourselves, either through a higher sense of rededication or the individual creativity that brings out the light, to a new chapter of, quote unquote, being the light unto the nations, and realizing that we make the difference. We are here to create a culture of peace, not a culture of death. And that is a mantra we must echo to our cosmic counterparts, the cosmic others, that we are prepared to graduate with those who bring us true light, true science, true awareness of how we are part of a larger galactic and what I will call a higher universal intelligence. Homo universalis is within each of us. And each of us, by finding ourselves as universal humans, open a whole new chapter of the purpose of life and evolution. We are being connected with a higher evolutionary pulse of divinity and love, so powerful it cannot be put into words, and yet we can put it into words in our own way. And this is the language we are all writing together.
Yeah, thank you. Because I wanted us to feel that, to have that experience, but we are having that experience because there's an opening of the heart here with the coming out, the sharing of deep personal experiences. And that's why we've come. We've come not to know the ETs, but to know ourselves. Graham, did you have something to share?
Well, I just want to add, although this may be an unpopular remark, the war on drugs for the last 50 years has really conditioned thinking in these matters, and most people actually don't think about them at all. They just react in a knee-jerk way. But here's the thing: the intelligence of this planet manifests through all life, including the plants. And there are plants which contain powerful molecules that profoundly alter human consciousness. And these plants have been used by shamanistic cultures for thousands and thousands of years. There's archaeological evidence of ayahuasca use in the Amazon going back more than 4,000 years. We can be sure from the art of the painted caves that these deeply altered states of consciousness were being embraced tens of thousands of years ago. We have, when I listen to Linda, what you're describing, Linda, sounds to me like a profound experience in a deeply altered state of consciousness. And that is not to say that the experience is not real. What I'm saying is that if we remain locked in the alert problem-solving mentality, we are going to close ourselves down to huge areas of the universe. And we have allies on this planet. The plants, the sacred medicines, are there to help us if we need help. A lot of people don't need help. A lot of people don't want help. But if we want help to gain contact with other levels of reality, and everybody can do this if they choose to do so, the sacred plants are available in a proper ceremony, with respect, with love, with the right setting, with the right intention. These experiences can be utterly transformatory and put us into contact with other intelligences that communicate with us. And this must, in my view, be taken into account as part of the mystery that we're trying to address here.
Yeah. But, you know, I just want to say about that, and maybe you won't agree, and I want everyone else to comment, is that I think we're at a different level of vibration. I think those were tools that we needed at some point in our evolution.
No, we desperately need them now. Donald Trump needs them.
No, people...
Every president running for office needs to have those experiences. We have not outgrown them. We are in desperate need.
I think some people need them, but I think a lot of people here are having these experiences of higher consciousness just on their own with accessing.
So that's good enough?
Well, it's good enough for some people.
But the question I want to ask is, if the planet generously provides us with plant allies that will help us to do that, which are an entirely natural produce of this planet, they're not made by big pharma. If the planet is kind enough to offer those, what Aldous Huxley used to call gratuitous graces to us, then at the very least we should not despise those who seek to go there or say that we have moved beyond that. We don't need that. I think that's an incredibly arrogant position.
No, I think some people have moved beyond it, and I think some people need that. I think James, go ahead. Go ahead, James, and then Tricia.
All right. I had the benefit of being introduced to a 25-foot wave, and I didn't do ayahuasca, but I ended up in the golden plane of bliss through that experience. And I was unique yet one at the same time. I was a light being, but I was in this greater light that was surrounding me. And it was the most awesome experience I've ever had. And I think there's many paths to the source. There's many paths to the mountaintop. And I don't really push one path or the other. But I think there's an extreme danger sometimes, because we have a lot of people who are doing weekend ayahuasca things, you know, and it becomes a party element. And so it needs to be really done by a trained shaman that knows how to heal unseen negative influences, to keep the energy clear. And you know, we need tools and techniques before we get blasted like a V8 into a realm we have no control over. And just that's my experience. But I want to say one more thing. It's all about frequency. The bottom line is, and that every attitude, every emotion has a frequency, and the fear and the guilt and the unworthiness has been perpetuated on us for so long, and the separation game all has a frequency. And we're carrying that within us from childhood trauma, from past life trauma, and things like that. And it's all about releasing this and healing this and getting up into the higher frequencies of love, joy, and bliss. And that's when the contact comes. When we rise to the occasion, we dump our baggage. So there's many ways of doing this. We do a lot of process-oriented therapies at the ranch. Other people use other techniques. And so I don't want to say one technique supersedes another. Everybody has their own path. But there are other multiple ways of doing it. But again, the bottom line is like, whatever you can do to dump the baggage is what we need to do. And the Earth is going forward. She's ascending. We have to become frequency specific to the Earth. And all these other beings coming in are here to help us do that. And it's all about self-empowerment. They don't want to be worshipped. They don't want to following, they don't want any of that stuff. They just want us to wake up and take care of the planet and take care of ourselves. That's the bottom line.
Can I just add a small point to that? First of all, I completely agree with you. I've been working with ayahuasca for 13 years now, and I completely agree with you that the setting and the ceremony, and that you are in the hands of a knowledgeable person whose heart is filled with love, not with ego. That's incredibly important in the ceremony. But that being said, with those conditions looked after, these experiences are really rather extraordinary. And I'm not urging anybody to have them, but I just say put it on the agenda as something you might consider. The other thing I want to say is that we're all here, talking about the space brothers who want to help us to ascend. We have intelligences on this planet called plants. Plants are not, just lumps of matter. Plants are antennae of higher intelligence. And those plants are offering us a way to manage our own ascension. I don't think we should turn our back on it. I don't think we should insist that anybody uses it, but just consider it out there as one way to work with consciousness.
Yeah, it's a tool. It's one tool. I agree.
Okay, if I can say a few things about this. When I was 19, I met a group of masters called the Viragi Masters. And so they became the masters that taught, they had the roadmap to all the inner planes. They had specific techniques to teach you how to travel in the inner worlds. And one of the things they said was, basically clean up your act and don't do drugs. Now, like most college students, I tried marijuana and, the hallucinogens. And I found that the hallucinogens were wonderful because they allowed me to pull back the veil and to travel in the inner planes. And so I did those journeys in a very sacred way. But it's kind of like after a while, you jump up on the trampoline and you see the inner planes again and again. And after a while, if you listen to the guidance, it says, come back now. You know those highways and byways. Do it on your own. So you learn how to do it on your own with meditation. What I would like to say about ayahuasca, there are different levels of teacher plants, and that happens to be the grandmother plant. And what it does is it basically does two things. It releases more of the DMT that our brains already produce, but is neutralized normally on a daily basis by our stomachs. Our stomachs release an acid that neutralizes that DMT. So what ayahuasca does is it stops the release of whatever that neutralizing agent is in the tummy, which is why you get nauseated and throw up, because the stomach doesn't like to be messed with. And then it gives you more of the naturally occurring DMT. This is why when people fast for long periods, they start having visions, because the DMT is not being neutralized by the stomach acid. And consequently, they get access in a gentler way into these higher states of consciousness. But, what they say about ayahuasca is it takes that which is highest in you to heal that which is lowest. It is a major teacher plant, boys and girls, and it is not to be messed with, because that realm, there are serpentine energies, and most of us have been taught to be scared of snakes. We've been taught to be scared of reptiles. Lord of mercy, a reptile. But actually, the serpentine energy is the energy of the DNA. It's the energy of the kundalini. It's the energy of the Inda and the Pingala. It's the energy of the esophagus, of the intestines, of the boy parts and the girl parts, okay? It's the movement through the planet. The solar system moves like a snake around the galactic center. So the serpentine energy is everywhere. So if you're going to go into the realms where you might meet the grandmother snake, you better not be afraid. You better get straight with yourself, and you better form your spiritual alliances, whether they're with Jesus or Buddha or Mary or the Divine Mother, and you get those guys on your team and you make that connection first. So if you get in trouble, you call those beings in, and believe me, they will come. But that's the most important thing, is to get those energetic alliances if you're going to travel into those inner realms where you don't feel like you have control for the next 5 or 6 hours. Make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
this-
Desiree, and then Laura. Yeah.
So what's interesting, of course, is that we are all using various techniques to reach that higher state of consciousness. We personally use meditation. We're doing a workshop tomorrow. If you want to hear some of the meditation with sacred names, you're all invited. But in addition to that, I want to shift it a little bit to say that we believe that there's beings that are helping us, as Trish just described, and they are here to help us on all levels, no matter what we're doing in our lives. But one of the key things is they're actually also shifting or helping shift the planet. We believe that there's a weakening of the magnetic field strength, which is scientifically proven, and that in itself is actually helping our consciousness, and this has been tested in Russia from people like Trofimov and Kazhashev that we've worked with. The weakening of the magnetic field strength is actually helping our consciousness to become more aware and reach out into those other realities. So the whole shift is taking place for everyone. And for some people, no matter what technique they use, it's overwhelming for them. And so we have to not be overwhelmed. The overwhelming is because of that intellect. We have to go with the flow of consciousness. We have to open our minds to realize the multi-dimensional aspect of ourselves and of other beings around us. And they are, as we said earlier, very happy when we can tune in and work with these other beings. They've been waiting for us to have that higher contact. Many levels of contact, many levels of being. The choice is all up to you.
And sometimes we need a tool to bypass the intellect. I don't disagree with Graham about that. It's just not everybody. But let's keep going. Laura.
Well, it's just interesting when we look at our history and where we are today and what's been wiped out, what's been rewritten, what dark technologies have been used to manipulate our DNA and to, change the nature, of everything. And, we're alchemists, and the ancient, cultures and, the Templars and the Essenes and the Cathars and, these groups of individuals understood how to initiate ourselves into being a Christed being. Not to just look at one person as the being to worship, but to become the alchemist that can, reach that state of consciousness. So we're in mastery training. We've been masters before. There's not any challenge we can't handle. It's just a bigger puzzle to solve sometimes, and sometimes it's smaller. Sometimes a splinter hurts worse than a broken arm. But, the thing is when we move into these higher planes of consciousness, we can handle things like chemtrails, nanoparticles, because we turn it into gold. We turn it into jewels. We turn our pain, into treasures. It becomes wisdom that we can pass on to people. So I embrace adversity. I embrace the challenge. I don't have any judgment about it. I once had this dream that these Komodo dragons were following me around, and one bit me, and then all of a sudden I'm like tripping on this dragon venom in my dream, and it's all lucid. And I'm just like, whoa, and there was like 7 dragons. They were following me around. They had tears in their eyes, and this venom was like filled in my body. And 3 days later in the news, there were 7 virgin births of Komodo dragons. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, when do you hear about this? And I'm like, okay, I've got this major connection going with these dragons. And but when we look at the stargates, when we look at what we're restoring, it's sacred geometries have been in reversal modes. There's been like the codes have been all scrambled, and everything is sort of a mess. The beauty is that unity consciousness and us sharing different aspects of who we are is what turns on these dormant strands. We all have something to give each other that will help us to get the ball rolling. I've been doing tarot for about 20-something years. I've got calluses on my fingers because I shuffle so much. People who, drive me around here and there, if I get a ride, I'm shuffling. They're like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, I'm just shuffling. I have to shuffle, and I have this circle dive. Like, that's interesting. What is that? And on the plane when there's turbulence, I'm shuffling. They're ready to. I'm like just seeing if the plane's gonna crash. And they're like, oh, okay. And like, do you mind if I hold your hand? I'm like, because now it actually bothers me the thought of dying. So our bodies are designed to be immortal. There's a vampiric Draco-reptilian thing going on that compromises DNA on purpose to be controllers because it's foreign to this universe, and it needs to modify us in order to be able to have hosts, in order to be able to exist here. The thing is adversity teaches us strength. If pressure is being pushed against us, it can crush us. But if we push back and we continue to push back, we just gain muscle. I think we all feel like Conan the Barbarian probably at this point. I have glimpses of feeling that way, just like, holy crap, because it never stops. But there's a point in which we all get to kind of look at each other and recognize that no matter what's being thrown at us, if you look at it and allow yourself to be empowered and you turn all these weapons into something that actually lifts your spirit, you've gained victory over the dark side. And the thing is, in the tarot deck, there's the devil.